Well, we're here with Professor Pat Malone from Brown University at the lower privilege site here in Chepachet, along the Chepachet River. And today we see just a few of the ruins left of this mill, but there's a tremendous story that goes back with this site here along the river.
Here at this site, we had industrial development, probably even in the 18th century. There may even have been a forge at this area as an early use of water power. But the textile industry comes into this site, as far as we know, around 1814 with something called the Union Mill. We think the Union Mill was probably right about here, but it's a little tricky because what we see with this foundation is probably a reconstruction, a new mill that was put in here between 1826 and 1827, a mill we refer to as the Point Mill. And the Point Mill was an impressive structure with a substantial amount of water power. The drop here is about 28 feet, and there is a dam which provides a substantial body of water directly in front of the mill and channel leading to it. This arch was where the water entered the Point Mill, and there would have been a water wheel inside the mill. But there's expansion here in the period between 1848 and 1855, which is after they put in two major reservoirs upstream on the Chepachet. They add a wheel pit with a separate wheel house, which is over here in the woods. And we can still see that pit. And there was a substantial breast wheel. And it provided enough power not only for the Point Mill itself, they probably got rid of this original wheel, but also for an expanded mule spinning wing, which went off the back of this building.
What did they specialize here? Was it mostly cotton textiles or woolens? Or?
This is an area where they do both cotton and woolen. And woolens comes in here just before the Civil War at the middle privilege. Woolens are really significant because of the Civil War and demand for uniforms. But Chepachet is able to continue in business producing various types of woolen fabric, competing with larger mills because woolens is kind of a specialty run. Most of the expansion in the 1870s and 1880s takes place at the upper and middle privilege. Although the ownership here combines mills on the upper privilege with this particular site. This site is kind of left to get along with what it had. And it doesn't really get the investment and capital that would have been necessary to turn this into a really efficient site. We, for instance, see no evidence that they ever went to a turbine here. The other thing that happens here is that all of the sites in Chepachet are hurt by the failure to enlarge the reservoirs. There was a proposal in 1871 to build much larger reservoirs, which would have provided much better year-round flow. The problem here is that even with the early reservoirs, in the summer there's very little water. If they'd had reservoirs that could have stored water in the winter and the spring and then used it in the summer, they would have been much better off. The reservoirs that they had were inadequate. When the effort in 1871 to build these larger reservoirs fails, that dooms Chepachet. They try to get by with some expansion based on steam power, but they really needed the great reservoirs. And this particular site ends up with very little production by the 1880s. And in 1889 to 1890, there's a fire that destroys this site. And the fire has left us the stone foundations so that we can tell a great deal about the particular structure of the mill. We also have insurance drawings and maps that show this site, and it's a very good place, I think, to interpret industrial development and industrial decline.
You were part of a team that was out here studying this site, and what is some of the future of this site that has such a wonderful past? What are we looking for in the future now?
Well, I think the thing that we need to do is to open this site to the public, to provide good walkways to it, interpretive signage, to clean some of the vegetation away so that we can see the foundations. This time of year, as you can see, there's a lot of of vegetation covering the site. Actually, in the fall and winter and spring, it's much more visible. And I think that people would really appreciate interpretive signage that would explain what they're looking at. And since we have both the wheel pit and the foundations of the mill and the wing, this is a very good site for public interpretation. So I think that we can do a really fine job here of explaining how a water-powered mill worked, how water was brought to the mill, the relationship of the dam to the mill and the wheelhouse, the tail race. We can explain water power development probably better without the building in place. And that's kind of an irony. We'd like to have the whole building, but with this foundation, it opens up an opportunity for really effective explanation of water power.